My talk's titled Beyond Access Control, but what I'm actually going to talk about is what we call business authority. I'm going to tell you three things: what business authority is, how the Wisdom Authorization Solution lightens the load on business applications, and what a Wisdom Authorization Solution gives the enterprise in terms of powerful, nuanced, auditable authorization and compliance. Business authority isn't just about ensuring that the right people access your IT resources. It's about ensuring that these right people do the right things for the business as they use those resources. More and more, financial firms have to demonstrate not only that they secure their IT, but it's always used to do the right thing. Call it compliance or corporate governance, call it business process control. What it comes down to is controlling the authority to act. Gartner's analyzed how firms have tried to address these compliance obligations while dealing with complex business transactions. To date, the only approach has been homebrew solutions that scatter the responsibility over, if you're lucky, scores of systems, both infrastructure and application. They rarely work, and they're always expensive. I founded Wisdom to provide a commercial solution that would eliminate the need for homebrew that so far has rarely been successful. Rather than cobbling together a solution based on old paradigms, we designed Wisdom from the ground up to address the challenges of business authority. Business authority is discretionary and dynamic. It's given and taken back by business users as the business demands. It involves multiple parties to each transaction, each of whom brings his own authority and risk to the transaction. It involves data or resources that are owned by different parties with different sensitivity depending on the way the data is going to be used. And it has to interoperate consistently over many applications, multiple lines of business, even across different firms as the transaction passes from firm to firm. And just to make it hard, so it shouldn't be too easy, it has to be done in a way that can satisfy any audit or regulatory inquiry obligation, retrospective analysis any distance into the past. Complex business processes take place over time and across multiple systems. As they progress, new information will emerge that may change the authority required to continue the process or require additional steps to mitigate newly identified risks. A business authorization solution isn't just a guard that controls access. It has to be an executive that oversees and controls the whole process of the transaction. Clearly, this requires a set of infrastructure services to provide consistency, coordination, and reliability to the series of business authorization decisions that need to be made along the way. And that's what Wisdom Authorization Solutions are, a set of infrastructure services that can support a wide range of applications and application styles. Wisdom Authorization Solutions include 4 major services: an information service where roles are defined, controls are set, and delegations of authority are recorded; a decision service where policy decides whether the next step of the process should be authorized and, if so, on what basis; the obligation workflow service that helps assure that any conditions attached to the decision are satisfied; and key to the Wisdom approach, the Authority Context Session Manager. This is where the heavy lifting of business authorization takes place, giving applications simple access to the power of Wisdom. The ACSM provides interfaces tailored to the needs of different sorts of applications, from those that need only the simplest set of yes or no decisions to ones that will take advantage of nuanced business policy to guide their internal processes in detail. By relying on the ACSM, applications and their development teams won't need to deal with the intricacies of business authorization. They can focus on the functionality of the application, not the interpretation of business authority. They can manage the data of the business and not the data describing entitlements or access rights. App teams shouldn't have to track and code for changes in regulatory policy, and you, as an application developer, shouldn't have to anticipate all the different ways users of your application might want to manage business authority. In addition to the runtime services that applications use, a complete business authorization solution has to provide all the tools needed by the business to set up and control the authority about which the runtime decisions will be made. Wisdom includes tools and services that support all phases of the administration of business authority, from management of metadata to definition of roles to onboarding tools to bring the entities into the scope of business authority management. Here you see a few of the tools we provide to support the semi-technical administration of business authority services. But what makes Wisdom different are the tools that allow business users to take direct control over business authority. Let's look at a business user's tool. This app is an example of how the Wisdom Authorization Solution puts control of business authority directly in the hands of business users. We're looking here at the line manager's dashboard, and we're looking over the shoulder of Marion Freeman, In our hypothetical company, Marion manages a team of client service reps supporting two lines of business, global fund services and exchange-traded products. You see the members of Marion's team on the left, and you see that Marion's inspecting Dana Edwards. On the right, we see the list of roles and assignments that together define Dana's responsibilities and authority. At the bottom, we see the other roles and assignments Marion is authorized to manipulate that she could give to Dana. And now, Marion steps through the members of her team, reviewing the combinations of roles and assignments they each have. You'll notice that each of her people has a combination of roles that's appropriate to a team like Marion's. They're all similar, but they're different in the details of the individual assignments and responsibilities. Notice the many different specific combinations are built from a small set of roles that are defined in terms of common business. Now, let's see how Marion can add to the responsibilities of one of her staff. She's going to give Stephanie Green an additional responsibility, mandatory training compliance officer. And if you've worked in a bank, you know what that means. So Marion drags and drops the new role into place in Stephanie's authority. Marion then reviews all the changes she's made, and she could have made more than one, and she commits them. Here, Marion's making the change effective immediately, but she could select, say, the start of business tomorrow or start of business first of next month, or whenever the changes need to take effect. To summarize, the Wisdom Authorization Solution provides applications and the enterprise with fine-grained control of authority to perform complex business transactions. Applications and their developers are relieved of the burden of creating and maintaining authority control code. The business gets a suite of tools and capabilities that support the life cycle of authority management. And business users regain direct control of how their people get authority so they can accurately manage their workforce and meet the constantly changing demands of real business. I have a little bit of time left, so I'd like to show you a quick demonstration of how the Wisdom Authorization Solution might support a business application. We were looking at Marion Freeman's team of client service reps, so let's look at what we call the client service workstation. It's typical of the sort of application client service reps would use in a bank. Here we see Alyssa Bridges, a member of Marion's team, selecting the client she's going to service. You see that of all the clients in the firm, Alyssa's only authorized to support amalgamated pension managers. Alyssa selects financial services help, and then she selects transaction initiation. She's going to create a request for a transaction to be performed. And in our hypothetical bank, as in many real banks, the policy for separation of duties says a maker will create the request and a checker will actually send it. Alyssa's the maker. So she selected an inter-account transfer of funds from one account that belongs to her client, amalgamated pension, to another account owned by amalgamated pension. And she says submit, and her made transaction is accepted. Pretty straightforward. Now, let's see what happens when Alyssa pushes the envelope a little bit. So we'll go back. Financial services help, transaction initiation. Now, Alyssa's going to try to initiate a transfer of funds from an account of the client she's authorized to service to another firm. Happens to be a client of the bank, but it's not one of her authorized clients. So she picks those two accounts. Now, she's going to submit this, and there's a problem with it. We're not going to say no, though. When she submits it, the Wisdom Authorization Solution says, yes, this step is permitted, but there's an obligation that before the checker can send the request, another maker has to complete the transaction on the other party's side. That obligation can be satisfied by Alyssa by calling to another of her coworkers, hey, Mary, would you approve my transaction? The application could support it, or the Wisdom Authorization System in the ACSM could intercept that obligation and process it on behalf of Alyssa. Now, let's assume something that's happened in the real world, and one client of the firm, Athena Fund Management, has a breakout situation, needs more support. Okay, so Marion's decided that Alyssa has extra bandwidth, and so she's going to put Alyssa on the Athena account as well. So here we see, we're back on the line manager's dashboard. Marion's opening up Alyssa's assignment. This is not her role, it's her assignment within the role. And she's adding Athena funds along with amalgamated pension to Alyssa's authority. And as we saw before when we were changing roles, Marion inspects her work, commits it, and makes it effective immediately. Now, let's go back to the client service workstation. So Alyssa is finishing up her work on the amalgamated pension. You notice, there's one of the function buttons that Alyssa might work is disabled, the product sales. Amalgamated pension doesn't have authority or doesn't give authority for product sales to be performed by client service representatives. Alyssa has the authority to do it, but because her authority is conditioned by authority of her current client, it's disabled for her. All right, let's continue on. So now Alyssa goes and she's going to pick Athena funds and start servicing them. And as you see here, the pension product sales is enabled because Athena funds allows that to happen. Now we could go through all sorts of combinations of transactions that Alyssa might start, but I think you get the point. So let's talk about how you could use the Wisdom Authorization Service. If you're a financial firm and you build or integrate your own enterprise IT, you can replace your legacy entitlement systems with a Wisdom Authorization Solution as a straight replacement in most cases. But where you might have 2 or 5 or 20, if you're lucky, or maybe 40 different entitlement systems, one Wisdom Authorization system could replace them all. Or if you don't want to buy our product, if you want to build your own, we could license the model to you. So you could build a Wisdom Authorization system on your own platforms and still get the benefits of interoperability and policy maintenance by Wisdom. If you're a service bureau or you have a client-facing line of business, you can add a Wisdom Authorization Solution to your client-facing applications so that your clients can take control of how they authorize their people to perform their roles, duties, and obligations in your systems. And if one of your clients already uses Wisdom, their internal controls of authority could flow straight through to yours. They would get the benefit of a unified approach to authorization, single audit, single annual recertification. And if you're an application developer, you could supply a Wisdom Authorization Solution as your product's native authorization solution. And if you find the adopters of your application already have Wisdom, you'll fit right into their enterprise authorization scheme. And that's what I wanted to tell you about today. I'll be outside at my table on the side. And if you want to see more detail or you want to see the real technical side of this, we can do live demos there. And I thank you for your time and attention.